You are listening to Overwatch League Network, The Backcap, the podcast with insight on the Overwatch League's path to pro and contenders analysis. Here are your hosts, Emily Drunk and Ren. What is up, guys, and welcome back to OWLN, the Backcap, the podcast with Deadeye on all the latest Path to Pro news, obviously contenders analysis, and so much more. Tonight is episode number 24, and we're going to take an inside look at one of the regions that we haven't really had a chance to look at, and that is Contenders Australia. I'm in good company tonight, because we have one of my favorite podcasters, straight from Junkertown FM, Tidget, mate. It's gonna finally sit down, talk some Overwatch, get some content out as a collab, and yesterday was your birthday, so a lot going on for you this week. But how are you doing this afternoon, man?
Doing absolutely fantastic. It's a lovely middle of the day here in Australia, and just like you said, we've been talking about this for a while, so it's actually fantastic to be able to get our stars aligned and be able to make this happen and actually get to wrap some contenders. And what better time than season 2 and during my birthday week? Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's only like a 13-hour gap between the time zones, so, eventually we were going to make shit work, and tonight is a night.
Yeah. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
As always, guys, I definitely want to thank everyone that's tuning in for our live show, and of course, thank all of our repeat listeners out there. Without you, there really is no show. But let's go ahead, let's jump into the news from this past week. Cause, we got a lot of World Cup news, we got some pretty major Overwatch League news, which we'll talk about again here on the Backcap. But first, let's talk a little bit about contenders and the fact that we're getting more coverage from broadcast.gg. So, this is a group that has been given a platform to a lot of up-and-coming talent in regards to analysts and casters. And, they kind of really branched out last season in Contenders Trials. And of course, they're doing stuff with Contenders as well. Well, now they've also added coverage for China and South America for English streams. And, prior there had been no English streams for either one of those regions. And, we're starting to get to the point now where you can actually consume all of the Contenders content out there, all in English, and you're not having to listen to, non-native tongue for a lot of listeners out there. Because, when I'm watching some of the, Chinese stuff, or, South America, which I don't tend to do that often, but it's more so China when I'm watching Team CC, it's really hard to kind of, get engaged when I don't know what the heck they're talking about. Having that commentary definitely adds a lot to, the viewership and the broadcast, and, without it, it takes a little bit of the punch out, just from the overall spectator experience of the game.
Well, it's just about all the engagement, really, and it can be simply put as, if you're watching Overwatch League and you're not watching about audio, it's hard to get really immersed and really into it. But as soon as you put that audio in and you hear the commentators and you hear people like Uber just absolutely blasting off, then you're absorbed. So this is awesome news, man. This is actually awesome.
If you're a content creator out there, or if you're looking to get, another opportunity to maybe get some exposure and get some practice under your belt, for, an analyst or commentator type role, definitely reach out to broadcast.gg. I know they're always looking for more people to be brought in, just to expand their family, and I know a lot of people that have actually already done that. My good buddy John, aka Kick Tripod from Overwatch League Daily, has been doing a lot of stuff, and that started back with Contenders Trials, and I know he's still with them quite often, so definitely check out broadcast.gg. They'll have all their stuff over on their Twitch channel, which I will have linked in our show notes. But let's talk a little bit about the World Cup, because we got some powerhouse teams that had narrowed down their 12-man roster to a final 7-man, and we got to talk about the big dog, really. I mean, let's talk about South Korea. The back-to-back champions. South Korea has won every World Cup that Overwatch has put on. And yes, I know there's only been 2, but it's still worth saying. So South Korea is bringing out a full Overwatch League roster, which is really no surprise. This is a country that did not have open tryouts like a lot of other regions, which was kind of interesting if you think about it, just because South Korea by far has the most depth at every single position that you can think of. You can throw out like probably 8 to 10 names on, any role, and then it'd be hard to argue to find like a team that wouldn't be better than compared to like the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Like there's that much talent. But for their final 7 on the tank line, we have Fate from the LA Valiant. We have Meko from the New York Excelsior. For support line, we have the NYXL duo. So we got the Overwatch League MVP, Jonak. I mean, really could be no other man for the MVP. We have Arc the Undying. And then for damage, we got Sebiobi Libero from NYXL. And then we have Carpe from the Philadelphia Fusion. So, I don't know about you, Tidget, but, I know Fisher didn't make the final cut. And, there's been a little bit back and forth with that. And, there's a little bit of drama last night because Fisher wasn't playing for the Gladiators during the quarterfinals match. And, there's been, like, so much going on with that. And, Leak Boy, aka Slasher, posting some things, and then Fisher responding back. And, it's a constant cycle going back and forth. But no matter which way you slice it, this team is by far the scariest out of all of the countries in the Overwatch World Cup. And they shouldn't have any issues really getting out of that group stage.
It is an absolutely monster team. Even the 7 that they went from, exactly like you said, they have so many options that even if they kept whatever the 12 selections that they had, and they had a different top 7, we would still be saying this exact same thing. We would still be saying stuff, like Fury's in it, and Fledder's made it, and Karev. It doesn't matter. They're just so strong, and it's going to be an absolute bloodbath. And RIP their group stages. That's all I have to say.
Absolutely. So that group stage does kick off on August 17th. That'll go through August 19th, and looking to get second place out of that group. I'm not going to put it any other way. We have Russia, Japan, Finland, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. So, kind of looking at that, Finland is obviously like the other major team in this group. Russia has kind of always been one of those teams that does well, but maybe not well enough to really see a lot of progress in the brackets. Japan and Taiwan and Hong Kong are kind of all in the same category where they're more South Korea light in the sense that, in the Pacific region, they try to mimic what the South Korean teams do, just to a lesser extent because they just don't have the same capabilities as a lot of the South Korean teams out there. So really, when you're looking at it, South Korea and Finland more than likely will be the 2 teams to escape. But Taiwan, aka Chinese Taipei, is always an exciting team. So if anyone might be considered the dark horse in that group, it would probably be them. But, I find it funny that, we know who the Overwatch League All-Stars are for the NYXL division, and now we see the South Korea Overwatch World Cup team, and then NYXL make up the majority of both.
Yeah. Are you surprised?
Absolutely not. But anyways, shifting gears, we got to talk about, my home crowd, the United States team. So that's another team that dropped from their 12-man roster down to 7 players. And there's been a lot of chatter online, especially over on the competitive Overwatch Reddit, about some of the decisions being made, primarily in regards to the support line. I think everyone else is pretty much on board with all the other selections. So, I made my picks for the final 12, the final 7, on prior episodes, and I was pretty much on the money for the tank and the damage line, actually right on the money. Support line, absolutely fucking nuts. So, the tank line, as expected, we got Muma from the Houston Outlaws, we got Space from the LA Valiant, with damage being Sinatra from the Shock, Hydration from the Gladiators, and Zachary from Fusion University. And Zachary is the only one coming out of the Path to Pro scene to make Team USA. So that means that on the support line, we have Moth from the Shock and Raucus from the Outlaws. Okay, so, last year it was mostly, Houston Outlaws on a roster. Not so much this year. it's a bit more of a mix. You know, we can see Shock represented a little bit. We also saw Outlaws represented a little bit. But boy, was there an uproar over the support line picks. And, you know, I'm not going to say, like, I was gutted to see the final 7, but, like, this was not quite what I was expecting to see. Moth, like, he's okay, but I feel like with Arrow kind of at the helm, I would have expected to see, you know, another representative from the Path to Pro, just because Arrow did coach, you know, Fusion University. So I was expecting Elk to get the nod in that case, and Raucus has steadily been kind of on the decline, really, ever since Stage 2 in the Overwatch League. So, you know, like, I would say, like, overall, in regards to the power rankings that we did for OWLN for the World Cup, that definitely did take a toll. Just a little bit, like, not a drastic shift in regard to the rankings, but I know that a lot of us aren't feeling as confident with the lineup that they have selected with the support duo in this case, as opposed to what we were hoping to see.
It's crazy how, just like you said, we kind of predicted the general DPS and the tank spots and whatnot. A lot of people obviously thinking Sleepy was definitely a certified guarantee slot into that support role. And obviously, depending on whatever chemistry they might have with, I think it was Elk and Raucus. But then Arrow, he's kind of swerved us. He's gone another direction, and he's made his picks. And I guess Team USA, they have to trust their coaches' understanding of what's going to happen. But just like you said, a lot of people's perception of the team now have gone from serious contenders to, maybe you shouldn't have done that. That's not what I would have done.
Yeah, obviously, like, Sleepy and Raucus are both phenomenal players. Sleepy is more of a mechanically driven player. And, you know, it does speak a lot that, you know, regardless, both of these players did make the final 12. But really, like, I think the most important thing to note is, in this current meta that we find ourselves in, and yes, it is likely to change once we get to, you know, the main stage at BlizzCon. But right now, we are seeing a lot of, you know, what people dub, like, the Yoink, you know, double sniper comp. So we're seeing a lot of Orisa, we're seeing a lot of Roadhog, a ton of Hanzo, a ton of Widowmaker, a lot of Widowmaker. I mean, pretty much every game you see, you're going to be seeing Widowmaker.
It's a staple,
yeah, we've seen, you know, a lot of the top DPS players, like Sabiolbi, state some grievances he has with how Widowmaker is in the game right now, which is a completely other discussion that we could have at another time. But with Raucus, like, I know he's flexed on Hog quite a bit in the past, and ultimately, like, that could have been the decision. Like, yes, you know, Sleepy is phenomenal. He could be the more aggressive Zenyatta, as he is one of the more, you know, right-click to the dome approach type Zenyatta's, like, channeling his inner Jonak to, not to the same extent, because, you know, there's a reason why they call it Jonak syndrome. Everyone can adapt to having, you know, the NYXL mentality to that. But Raucus has been the better flex pick, and, you know, with the current meta that we're in, flex support is becoming more and more important, really, to these teams. So we'll see how the synergy is going to work out with Raucus in that spot, but he does bring a team leadership to this team, and without, you know, Jake in the fold this year, Raucus is more than likely going to be the guy to kind of lead the helm.
How are they going to go without Jake? Oh, who knows? Just in relation to Raucus, though, there was a lot of talk that him and Muma obviously have a lot of chemistry together, and it's been well known that Raucus is an ideal shot caller. Maybe not a primary shot caller, but he's really good at making those calls. And I don't know what his comparison is to Sleepy with that type of thing. So maybe it's just his actual presence and his personality that kind of got him that starting 7. So maybe USA need to put some more trust into Arrow.
I mean, we already saw the turnaround that the Dallas Fuel had in, you know, a matter of weeks with the Dallas Fuel. But US, you know, they have a pretty easy go of things when it comes to their group stage, because, you know, kind of looking at some of the countries that are on this list, they're not really powerhouse countries outside of maybe one in particular. So the US group stage starts on August 7th. And we'll be competing against Austria, Brazil, Canada, Norway, and Switzerland. So really, like right out of the gate, Canada is really the only other team to be concerned about. You know, they'll have XUC, they'll have Agilites, you know, because they misspelled Agility's name. And I always do their ongoing joke that they just call him that because that's usually when he doesn't show up. Because, you know, he is a very flashy player, and, you know, there are times where he'll, you know, draw that Dragon Blade and be insta-death. So we'll see what happens with Canada. But Brazil, out of all the countries here...
We call that the Arhan syndrome back at Junkertown FM.
Yeah. I'm well aware of Arhan throughout Apex past seasons, and now it's more...
Take a drink every time he ults on low health.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to make it through the game.
Yeah, then it went to AKM with the amount of time it took him to...
then you just sober up.
Right. And then, of course, you know, he got in on the meme, and then it kind of died off from there, but that's besides the point. But
it's no fun when they play along. Right. It's no fun.
But Brazil in this group stage is kind of like the wild card team. This is a country that... I think in both prior years of the World Cup, they were represented by Brazil Gaming House, which was... you know, the best team in South America. They still are, if I'm not mistaken. Last time I checked, in regards to Brazil, they were still the best team. I think Pain Gaming was a close second, but, you know, the gap was pretty significant between the two. But this is a team that, you know, the analysts always try to hype up, and then they just always fail to live up to the hype. So until they can actually do something, it's really hard for me to, you know, have that much confidence in, you know, a team like Brazil.
But honestly, can you see anything progressing from this group stage besides Canada and USA?
Absolutely not. But, you know, if there is one opportunity, it would be if Mangachu comes in and only runs Attack Torb.
Love it. Book it. I'm down.
That would be the only opening for Brazil to kind of, like, sneak in. But, like, I really don't know anything about, like, Austria, Norway, or Switzerland in regards to their Overwatch scene. I didn't really recognize any names on any of those.
There's a handful of names that kind of strike to me, but nothing that I could really back up with any supportive evidence. I think a lot of it's just names that you kind of hear in passing when they do start talking about stuff like certain contenders divisions and whatnot. But anyway, all eyes are going to be on Canada and USA, so it's going to be a fun group stage. I'm excited.
Absolutely, and speaking of excitement, it was yesterday that we had some pretty major news drop. It was yesterday afternoon, even, in regards to the Overwatch League and also the Overwatch World Cup, and it's a pretty massive signing, right? Like, we have a TV deal set in place for Overwatch League and the World Cup and some other tournaments, and it's coming to ESPN, Disney, and ABC networks. So this deal is a multi-year broadcast deal that includes the Overwatch League playoffs, so this is actually already going on. We'll have the World Cup also being broadcasted, and this also, you know, includes, like, the Season 1 Grand Finals with, like, Game 1 actually being on the flagship ESPN channel, which is an absolute massive, you know, deal for esports because it's Friday night prime time. Like, it doesn't get any bigger than that.
and it doesn't get any bigger than ESPN and Disney. Like, regardless that it's on the Disney Channel and the relation is quite strange, nonetheless, that's the Disney Channel, dude. That's insane.
Yeah, and, like, Disney has actually already been kind of bringing in, like, Overwatch in the past. I know they were doing, was it Contenders? I think it was Contenders last season, or maybe in Season 1 when it was Envious that won, and they were doing it on, like, a tape delay. But they've also built, like, esports programming, too, outside of that. So, you know, they've already kind of put in the infrastructure for esports programming. But, like, this is absolute massive. So this deal includes, you know, the second season of Overwatch League. It does not cancel the ongoing Twitch deal that they have in place. We'll have live and full replays of the Overwatch League. We'll have a recap show for ABC, and
very cool.
I'm assuming that's going to be separate from Watchpoint. I can't imagine that they're just going to port that over. So we'll have to see kind of like what that is entailed. But ESPN and Disney in the past have, produced some esports. On ESPN, it hasn't been a ton. Obviously, in the past, we saw Heroes of the Dorm, which was a collegiate Heroes of the Storm tournament, and we saw the backlash from, the sports fans out there when esports was on
What?
ESPN. What the hell is
This
this?
isn't football. Damn. Yep.
And obviously,
We had the same issue. Last year for the Overwatch World Cup, one of our channels in Australia called Seven Mate, they broadcasted one of the Australian games straight from the World Cup, and they had Uber and ZP on commentary, and they were kind of explaining the game while the game was going on because it was getting broadcasted on free-to-air television. Except the broadcast didn't go very well. There was like delays that paused, that like lost connection or whatnot, because Australia is a fantastic place that does awesome things with their internet and their capabilities to broadcast things. But unfortunately, it didn't go too well. They didn't see much viewership from it. So hopefully this will kind of reignite that spark, and some of this stuff can make its way beyond, obviously, NA and throughout the rest of the world.
right, so ESPN in the past, outside of that, they've also done some stuff with Street Fighter for the Capcom Cup. But, like, we don't know the financial deal in place for this. That was not disclosed. I'm really curious to know, like, how much money was, put forth for that.
I actually looked this up, and it's, and I quote, big fucking dollars. So I don't know what that exactly translates to the conversion between Australia and America, but that's a lot of dollary dues coming.
Yeah, to put it in context, I'm pretty sure it was a number where you would have to, like, basically take a piece of paper and then write it down, and then just kind of, like, slide it across the table,
Slide it
right?
over?
Right. Like, and then, the person looks at it, and their eyes just glaze.
Turn
and,
into
like,
dollar
pop.
signs.
Right. Exactly. It was that much money. We might never know. But really, like, we're gonna get it on Disney XD. We're gonna get it on ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN News, ESPN3, which is the online platform for ESPN, which I was a little, like, taken back by, just because, like, I don't know if that would have interfered with the Twitch deal, just because that was also online broadcasting. But all in all, like, I did not glue myself to social media during the matches last night to see if there was a ton of uproar. I'm sure there was, just because there's always a disconnect when general sports fans are like, this isn't sports, this is gaming.
What is this crap?
Right.
Yeah.
And then
That's those damn computer games.
yeah, sitting around isn't a sport, and yet ESPN always is like showing like billiards and
like
poker.
darts.
Right, darts.
But
Right.
we don't want to fight that battle though. We don't want to fight that.
One of these days,
One of
they'll
these
be
days.
more accepted, and hopefully, with the grand finals day 1, that'll be the day. We can only hope. But regardless, at the end of the day, like, this is absolute massive news, not only for Overwatch League, but for esports as a whole. This is gonna be a ton of exposure, and hopefully this will be an opening to bring more esports into mainstream media, because we've all seen how much money is really at stake and how much money is coming in and continues to come in for esports as a whole. And, like, I want to know how long this deal has been kind of being worked on, because kind of like throughout the Overwatch League season, we've seen some disciplinary actions that have kind of been taken that might have thrown some people off in regards to the way that the league went about it. Because they have basically, they have not been, like, tiptoeing around anything. Like, they've been laying down the hammer with anything, really. Fines, for making some gestures on camera.
Sorry, what'd you say? I didn't quite hear
Yeah,
that. Sorry.
right. Absolutely. And, just for that, you're fined. But regardless, like, of course, like, tune in. Like, I know a lot of people don't really like watching on Twitch. And, now you can watch on ESPN. You can go to a lot more bars now, and they'll have, Overwatch League on. Because, not everyone has, like, a Twitch app on their smart TVs or anything like that. So I'm excited this will bring in more, like, viewing parties pretty much across the globe. So I can't wait to check it out more on TV.
Oh yeah, it's a win. It's a win, baby.
All right, well, let's go ahead and let's talk about some of the movements that is going on right now in the Path to Pro scene. So, Tidget, like, we haven't really had as many moves this week in regards to people being brought onto teams or being released from teams. So why don't you go ahead and let our listeners know what's going down kind of across the globe in a slower news week?
So it looks like Craigie has been dropped from the British Hurricanes. Myself personally, I don't really keep up to date with the EU scene, being in Australia. So I don't really have much. I don't really have much to say about that, unless you want to chime in real quick.
Hurricane haven't quite had the same punch that they had last season. So I'm not gonna say like they're in dire straits, but out of the gate, things have not looked as precise as they would have expected.
Okay. Tonic has also been dropped from Bazooka Puppies, which obviously do have one of the best names in the entire league. So maybe not good things for Tonic, but anytime we can get Bazooka Puppies to be read out and talked about, it's a win for everybody.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Looks like
it's a shame we still don't have Laser Kittens, because that was the other one last season.
Yeah, Laser. Yeah. We've also got Shah PPP to We Have Org as a new coach. Cracker has been dropped from Fusion University. Bernard has gone to the Fusion University, and Jaru, and I can never pronounce this, so I'm going to butcher it, but it's Zertzi. I don't know. Tell me I'm wrong.
It's Xretzi. And it's basically like how it looks. But I know, it is a really weird name. See, this one was interesting to me because, Jaru was the only one from Envision Esports that wasn't picked up for Team Envy. And, he did find a new team in Sky Foxes, who were Karasuno, and then, Seattle Sky Foxes, and then dropped Seattle from the name. We still don't know why. It was just something that they did. But Sky Foxes have been one of those teams that, coming out of Open Division, they took second place. They fell to Goats. Goats really aren't around anymore. They might be back. They might not be. Who knows? Obviously, they failed to make it into contenders, even with XQC filling in during all, the bans and whatnot. But they did show some better looks tonight with that new lineup, and both of those players are DPS, so, it might take a little bit of time for them to synergize together, but Xretzi had a lot of big plays on Rialto tonight in their series, so definitely check out that, because there were moments where, he would be in a Widow duel on Rialto, where they're basically face-to-face, they were in the same building, and the other Widowmaker was getting pocketed by the Mercy, and Xretzi was still winning the Widow duel. It was absolutely absurd.
That's fire, yeah.
And in regards to Fusion University, Krakalakin was subbed out. He was inactive last week for Fusion University, and Bernard was the one that was stepping in that place. So I'm really not too surprised by the swap there. But we're really here to talk about Contenders Australia. Heck, that's why you're on the show. We're going to talk about Australia. So in the past week, we've had quite a bit going on. We saw Bid Chickens get a new logo because the other logo was absolute trash. Literally, it was trash.
It was actually a trash can, just upside down with a chicken head inside of it. But it wasn't enough, so Blizzard, they kind of fixed it up for them and just added bin chickens in proper esports writing right underneath it, and it looks mint. And bin chickens are going to be stoked with that, because I think everybody else is. And just like Bazooka Puppies, just like Laser Kittens, bin chickens, top name team.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, even with the new logo, that did not change the outcome, as they have still yet to pick up a map win this season because they fell 4-0 to Sydney Drop Bears. We saw Blink Blue defeat Tainted Minds 3-1. We saw Legacy Esports defeat Dignity 3-1. Masterminds GC defeated Pixel Esports 3-2. Darksided defeated Serenity 3-2, and then it was Conga Esports defeating Avant Gaming 4-0. Okay, so you and I were talking a little bit earlier in Discord about some surprise 3-2s.
Yes, it's like the results that you just mentioned there. They're not. It's nothing surprising because there's obviously, just like every division, there's stronger teams, there's newer teams, there's teams that have rebuilt and currently rebuilding. But a couple of really crazy ones here: Masterminds and Pixel Esports. Pixel Esports coming from an open division, then the trials position, and then now obviously in Contenders Australia. Compare that to last season when there was certain teams like Tainted Minds. They did the same thing. Tainted Minds didn't get a single win the entire season. And then we got Pixel Esports that are coming out against Masterminds, which have former Kiki from the Australian World Cup. Tails, absolutely amazing. Obviously, both moved on now, but that's not important. But who would have thought that Pixel Esports would have taken Masterminds to the 5th map? It's that one game itself is a better encapsulation of the entire season than the first season, which just saw almost every game 4-0, 4-0, 4-0, maybe at 3-1. It's kind of unheard of. And if you actually watch it back, you hear the casters actually jaw-dropping that these teams are coming out of nowhere, particularly the open division, then the trials, and now into Contenders, and they're putting their money where their mouth is. We had Serenity almost defeat Darksided. Darksided were a guaranteed they might come second or first. They didn't take out the seasons last season, falling to I think it was Blank Blue in the early quarterfinals. But Darksided are a strong team. Serenity, another team that didn't get a single map win, if I can recall correctly, they took Darksided to the 5th map. All of this in just the second week of Contenders. It's actually unheard of, and it's amazing footage. It's amazing to watch back, and it's just so much fun. We don't want weeks of 4-0s and 4-0s and 4-0s. We want these teams to really show us what they've got, and a lot of people are starting to step up now and really show us what they actually have.
Absolutely, and what I loved about that Masterminds versus Pixel series is, on Control, like, the opening would always start the same way. Aki would come out, he would get an opening frag on August, so it was Omnic on Omnic violence, basically. Pixel would always get the initial capture, which happened on all 3 rounds over on Lijiang Tower. Taki really started to come into play on Widowmaker, his Pharah just wasn't quite cutting it. But as soon as he made that swap to Widowmaker, that is when they started to look like a completely different team. But kind of like going through the series, we were on Kane's Row, and this is where we saw that, double sniper, Yoink commented out was talking about, and it steamrolls basically through Kane's Row. Taki just is an absolute madman on this map, on a Widowmaker, to the point where Pixel has to basically invest 2 people to double team him just to deal with him, and that just allows Masterminds to just quickly go through phase 2 of the map. They have like 5 minutes left to complete the map, and Kane's Row is one of those maps where it is not the easiest map to finish because a lot of teams do kind of like get stalled on that final turn.
Oh yeah.
But we saw quite a bit of struggling coming out from Duboy, kind of like throughout the series, but there was one play in particular on Kane's Row, which I thought was absolutely amazing. That was when Masterminds were setting up their defense pretty, forward, and KS1 basically just charges, and he finds both of the tanks on a Pixel front line. That is absolutely absurd. I never see that happen. You might luck out with, a Fire Strike and catch, a couple of squishies, but you never see someone charge through and get both of the tanks. What the hell was that?
Hey, it's crazy in Australia Contenders, mate. You got to keep your good eye on it because we don't do things traditionally.
Absolutely. All right. Trying to think if there's anything else to note from that one.
There was the game that we had with Legacy versus Dignity. Dignity, also one of the surprising new teams that have moved up from trials. I think they had something going on with Surge Gaming, where Surge were late regulations, and Dignity have taken that spot. I can't remember the actual details of it, unfortunately. I probably should have done my homework a little bit better. But Dignity, another team that no one really thought much of. Some serious contenders. They had a match on Eichenwald, which there was one particular moment, and I'm going to be very biased to Legacy Esports here because they're my team of choice. But they did lose the map, unfortunately. But there was a moment where Legacy were pushing through. They've just taken the first point, and they were taking the payload just around like where the castle is. And Caramel Koala, one of the greatest names in the division, he on his Zaya, he threw up his Graviton Surge to the top of the castle. And we had Arceus, who was actually stepping in because Kiki's kind of MIA at the moment. Lobbed the Diva Bomb up there. Pretty much resulted in a team wipe just because of an awesome little Kobe basketball maneuver. It was absolutely unreal. Just to lob that Graviton up to the top of that castle, follow that up with that perfectly placed Diva Bomb. Bam, team fight's over. Take a walk, Legacy. You've done well.
Absolutely. And kind of like taking a look at that Dark-Sided Serenity series, I was really impressed by the play of Yuki, especially early on the Pharah. Basically, like, he was just going uncontested in the skies, despite Nox being on McCree. But he really wasn't getting pressured at all, and it just kept landing shot after shot, obviously getting a ton of direct hits and splash damage. And, like, throughout that series, like, we kind of saw some differences. I know Gusto had played quite a bit of Tracer, but the tank battle was really confusing to me because we have Mooney on one side and then Mini on the other. And that's too similar for me, obviously, like, in the past, going back a ways, back to, like, beta Overwatch, there was always, IDDQD, the player, and then there was IDDQD, the team, and God forbid, like, if they ever played one another, what that would have ensued. But, like, there's always been times where there are, like, so many names that are so close to one another, and then just makes life kind of like hell for the casters. So I was kind of like getting some deja vu from, past Overwatch esports viewing. But all in all, like, we saw some interesting things. I know, like, on Anubis, Nox opted to run the Sombra for Serenity's attack. But, he just eats a concussion mine, basically, just right out of the gates. And
we would, I'd suggest against that, actually. It's not delicious, and you are going to have an issue swallowing that.
Yeah, and, it could be quite explosive on either end, so keep that in mind. But, they stuck with it. They were waiting to build that EMP. And, Sombra has been kind of interesting because we've seen, like, different phases of Sombra, obviously, with all of the changes. And, we've gone from, like, the farming the health pack Sombra to being Tracer Light, whereas you're, technically a flanker, but you just don't have the same survivability as a Tracer, and you don't have the finishing capability of a Tracer, and, they do get the EMP, and, it comes out, like, right when Yuki is dropping his Riptire, but, they just don't have the follow-up, Like, I don't understand why teams continue to want to run the Sombra when she just doesn't bring enough, to the team comps, and with how buggy that character is as a whole, especially with, hacks and her translocator sometimes just ghosting and then not going anywhere. Like, it's too much of a liability to really run that in a competitive environment.
The Sombra was a very staple pick in Season 1. There was many maps, I think Junkertown particular, attacking or defending it. Australia would always be running a Sombra on those things. And it kind of was, you could get away with it. There was, like, Sydney Drop Bears, they had Billa, who was a phenomenal actual Sombra. And obviously, they took out Season 1 and they did it very strong, obviously. So they must have been doing something right. But I absolutely agree. I think it's very strange that a team will be comfortable to pull out a Sombra now, and especially because she's had changes and she's still having more changes. I don't think she's got a comfortable position anywhere at the moment. And just like there's videos where someone's trying to throw the translocator and they're trying to throw it to certain platforms, and it falls off, and they're like, well, that didn't work, now what? So I actually definitely 100% agree with you there, dude, because if you're going to run that Sombra, you're going to need a lot of conversation. You're going to need a lot of communication. And if the EMP combos don't work, that's a lot of time wasted. It's a lot of time wasted.
Yeah, because we're not in a territory where in the past you could basically get an EMP for almost every team fight.
Yeah.
When you're able to farm the health packs. So who knows? Like, I'm so used to like maybe only seeing the Sombra on like attack for Horizon Lunar Colony. That was a pretty common one
Mm,
before we really
mm.
start to saw the either quad tank with the two support or the goats comp of the 303. But I'm still not sold on her. I don't think her new changes are going to be to her benefit at all. I don't like the direction that they're going with the character. And I feel like we're going to be seeing less and less Sombra as we go on, and maybe that will eventually kind of seep its way into Contenders Australia whenever those changes do come out, or people will keep using the death strat. I don't know. But talking about Contenders Australia as a whole, who do you think are really like the players to keep an eye on? Just because like I know you have a lot closer inspection on that region as
Yep,
I
yep.
do.
So there's obviously a few characters that you're going to see really big names coming through, like stuff like Caramel Koala, arguably the best Widow at the moment in the division. The guy's just clicking heads like there's no tomorrow, and they're just not traditional shots. He's definitely winning the Widow duels, and he's very fun and exciting to actually watch. So Caramel Koala, you're going to hear that name an actual lot. Um, Micro, who's a part of Blank Blue, he subbed in the last game. I think Signed was sitting out, and the guy was just an absolute monster. There's not many standout Genjis in the Australian division, but Micro was absolutely devastating. He kind of swapped it a little bit with Aita, but Aita's never been known for his Genji, and when people like Micro, who he's teaming up with, that gives a good chance for Aita to jump onto another hero and let Micro really just Dragon Blade his round. And I think there was times where he was getting 3-4, including like a Diva mech, just off a single Dragon Blade, and that's nuts. And I can't remember who it was, what pro said it, but he was like, he was doing a Q&A, and then someone asked him, when's a good time to do like a Genji Dragon Blade? And he goes, don't. As soon as you press that alt button, the entire team are going to look at you. You're going to die. Don't play Genji. I'm guessing Australia got the memo, but Micro said, fuck the memo. I'm going to do it anyway. And he's showing us all, and it's actually unreal. So really enjoying that. Kanga Esports have a DPS character called Roro. I haven't seen much of him until very recently, and the guy is just a consistent, absolute monster. Once again, it's one of the people's names that you're going to keep seeing in that kill feed, because the guy he plays an amazing tracer. He's securing the kills. He's getting those final blows. He's just so much fun to watch, and I follow him on Twitch actually, and the guy's a really cool streamer, really fun to watch. Just another name that you're definitely not going to forget about. You mentioned a couple before, like Juboy. I think Exerce played a really good game from Pixel Esports. Cinderella is one of my favorite Winstons in the division, also from Legacy Esports. He just plays a really comfortable, smart game, kind of like an old school like Miro. So he wouldn't be overly aggressive, just very calculated and very smart when it came to his executions. The entire side of Dark-Sided, absolutely livid, actually. You got Yuki, you've got Termo, you've got Punk. Both Yuki and Punk making it to the Overwatch World Cup team. Cantus is an amazing healer. Molotov also on the support role. Sydney Drop Bears, they got Color Hex, who's just joined them because Billa wanted to go to a sub position because of personal real life reasons, which is absolutely acceptable. We got a Kraken, Jordation, Quartz, a Kraken, and obviously making it to the World Cup team as well. Shoyo and Quartz, I think they made it to the top 12. There's, from a division that didn't have the names in season one, I'm losing my mind already just trying to make sure I don't miss anybody, because there's like Anta, amazing, and Frogger, the supports from Blank Blue. I get excited because there's just so much going on, and we didn't have this in the first season.
Absolutely. So just kind of looking at the lay of the land right now. We're only like 2 matches in. But
Yeah.
we haven't seen Sydney Drop Bears drop a single map yet. Legacy has come out really strong too, haven't only dropped one map. Conga Esports is another team that's really stood out, as has Darksided. But looking at these one-in-one teams right now, the ones that are kind of breaking even right now. We have Tainted Minds, we have Blink Blue, Avant Gaming are there as our Masterminds GC, and Masterminds GC are really like one of the teams that are expected to really make a deep run. But like out of this pack, like who do you think has like the best chance to really come out on top of their respective groups?
Um, I think it's not this week or next week, but we've actually got City Drop Bears versus Legacy Esports. And no doubt, I think that's going to be deciding who actually finishes on top of Group A. Dignity and Bin Chickens. Unfortunately, the season is really short. So if you've already got 2 losses, it's very unlikely you're going to finish 3rd or 4th, let alone 1st and 2nd. But I think Group B is definitely a little bit more exciting, just with the names that you mentioned, Kanga Esports, Darksided, Avant Gaming, and Masterminds. Even though Kanga and Darksided are 2-0, they were both just this week 3-2 maps, I believe. Avant Gaming, they could have won. There was no doubt that they could have won that. And Masterminds GC, same deal again. They're on the rise. I think they're in what they call a rebuilding situation at the moment. But that's not to say that they're not going to finish well. But if I had to put some dollar dues on it, we'd have Sydney Drop Bears coming out top on Group A. Group B, I think Darksided will end up taking over Kanga Esports and finishing strong on Group B.
Yeah, I would have to say, like, I think Darksided, for me, are probably going to be my pick, too. There's just so much talent that I'm actually familiar with, for one. Just seeing on what other teams that these players have been on. And I really think, like, Yuki, definitely out of all of the players in that group, has the carry potential for that team. So I'm expecting them to make a quick turnaround, especially, when they do get a head-to-head against Conga. But, we also have to talk about the World Cup for Australia. So they recently announced their final 7 players that will be flying to Thailand to represent Australia in the Overwatch World Cup. So looking at this roster, we have Trill from Blank Esports. We have Punk from Darksided. We have Yuki, also from Darksided. CKM from Blank Esports. Huss from Blank Esports. We have a Kraken from Sydney Drop Bears. And Custa from the LA Valiant. Really no surprise there. I mean, he's the only Aussie in the Overwatch League. And who knows, that might change going into next season, with expansion teams coming. So right out of the gate, I need to get your thoughts overall on, the final 7. Were there any players that you felt might have been snubbed from, like, narrowing down that roster?
Yeah, so the committee, including Goomba, RQT, they did a lot of trials where they got basically a lot of the contenders teams just to have a big 6v6 every night. They'd mix up the teams, they'd watch it. It was streamed and the games were actually fantastic. It wasn't super diehard serious, but it was serious enough for people to show off their chemistry and what they can do to really show that they could be the picks to go to Thailand. They narrowed it down to a final 12, and no surprise, a lot of it was Blank Esports. Kind of a replication of the 2017 Australian World Cup team. And nobody was surprised about that. The guys, they're playing in Pacific Division at the moment. They did really well last year in the World Cup team. People, especially like our boy Trill, he's been working so hard, and you can see him getting better and better as a player every time you watch them play. They had to narrow it down. They've chosen certain people, and there's no one in there that I disagree with, but it's kind of like the Sleepy Raucous kind of situation where a Kraken, fantastic support player, but they've also got people like Tung and Anta who are also very good support players. I personally thought that Tung would have made it through, but unfortunately, Australia seems to also be cursed by people's real life getting in the way and commitments and having to be properly dedicated to the situation so they can actually get involved with certain things. And I think that might have been what happened with Tongue, because I think on paper, Tongue definitely looks better, but I think there was a reason why they took a Kraken over Tongue. And I think that might have been a more personal reason there. But we got a chance last year to actually meet RQT and Goomba. Awesome dudes. Goomba is so fucking smart when it comes to this game. He's so calculated. He knows what's going on. There's a reason why he's the assistant coach for LA Valiants. RQT is a really switched on guy. I've got so much faith in them that I think that they have really pulled out a stacked Australian team, and being a mix of Blank Esports, we got Darksider, we've got Sydney Drop Bears, and we've also got Custer. I am so excited for this. I think we are going to really show what we've actually, our true potential, really.
Yeah, and I have to say, like, looking at this group stage that kicks off on September 13th, out of all of the groups, like, this one is probably going to have the most investment from me, because I look across the board, and honestly, like, this is kind of like the group of death. Like, let's be real here. We have Australia, we have China, we have Sweden, Thailand, Spain, and Denmark. This is
and
gonna
unfortunately, only 2 are going to progress from this group.
Yeah, and Sweden has a pretty stacked roster.
Sweden are stacked, bro. It's actually insane.
China is an interesting one, because it's kind of a mix of well, they have Zufan Jun, aka Sky from the Shanghai Dragons, the only dragon to make the China team. Really no surprise there, based on how things kind of played out. We got a mix of, like, LGD Gaming, a couple of people from the former Miraculous Youngster roster.
Yeah.
Thailand, of course, has, Mickey at the helm, probably going to be playing a ton of Brigitte.
But he's Brig, yep.
Spain is one of those wildcard teams that has always kind of stood up, but the issue with Spain this year is, I was looking at their lineup, they have a lot of support players. I don't know who's going to be playing what. But
also Harry Hook he's a king of flex. We know he can play hit scan. We know he can play support. So I definitely think he's going to be one that gets to really spread his wings and kind of get away with what he wants to do this year. We've also got Bromas, who was in the Spanish team last year. Neptuno, I believe, is also in the Spain team. And we've obviously seen how Neptuno has been performing. So Toxican, I think, returned, who was also in the Spanish team last year, I believe. It's an interesting team, and I think they're going to have a lot of fun kind of doing what they need to do, just like you said, with the support roles kind of inundated. I think they're going to have a lot of fun, and I'm really upset that Australia have been pigeonholed into this team, because I like to think that we're going to make it through, but it's going to be tough, and it's going to be really close.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm just, like, looking at this, I'm like, I could see China, I could see Sweden, I could see Australia, like, definitely being, like, the more likeliest of, the 6 teams here. But I think, like, really across the board, like, Denmark is probably going to be the, from the outside looking in this case. I know Calyx is on that team, but, that's not a very prominent country in regards to Overwatch talent. So, they're likely going to be the odd man's out. Thailand is kind of like going back to Mickey's old team, and what was it, like, Swede time? Going way back. And, I'm sure the camera is always going to love that team, because, they bring a certain energy to to the land environment, which is always fun.
And they're the home team, so they're going to have a lot of fun. Mickey's going to be green, he's going to be smiling, he's going to be having so much fun playing at home for his country. But I think they're down there with Denmark, to be honest. Between me and you, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
But all in all, like, I definitely have, teams that I'm going to be favoring this year. I know the Overwatch League Network family and I all sat down. We all did separate top 6 rankings. Then we, kind of averaged things out. But Tidget, I know I brought this up to you earlier. I want to hear like who is in your top six because there might be a little bit of more Aussie bias on one side. But I want to know like if kind of
Maybe,
like
maybe.
the top five is in similar order.
Okay. Um, can we just skip number one and not
Well,
even talk about
well,
Korea?
yeah, we'll
Because
know who's number one. You don't even have to say it.
okay, so it's obviously Australia because Korea are going to be number two.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I'm definitely I'm not that biased. I can see things for my own self. I am on my first drink for the day, so let's not get carried away. But it's definitely Korea in that number one position from my perspective. You can't argue against it, I guess. In my second position, I would have Team Canada. I'm guessing you probably don't really need me to reiterate all this because I'm just gonna rattle it off. In third position, this was a really tough one for me. My last four, I've got them in in a ranking, but they're very close. And depending on whatever happens and how things go, these four could change at any minute. But in third spot, I've got the Swedish team, Sweden. I've got Finland in fourth. I've got USA in fifth and Australia in lucky number six.
Okay.
Mm.
Interesting. All right, so
Interesting.
just going through mine real quick. For my top six, in the top spot, obviously, South Korea.
Australia. Yeah.
Yeah. Second, I also have Canada. In third, I have Finland. USA, I have in fourth. Sweden
Bias.
in fifth, and then in my sixth slot, I have the United Kingdom. And a lot of people I talk to look at that roster and they don't give that roster its due credit. We saw the same thing happen last year. And the UK has mostly been kind of like center stage in regards to contenders, maybe not so much the Overwatch League, but that is a very strong country just across the board, and I think Cruz is definitely going to bring a lot to that support line, so I think they're going to surprise a lot of people. A lot of people are underestimating what they're going to do, but looking at how we average things out for the Overwatch League Network rankings, Australia unfortunately did not make the cut.
Well, that's what you say, but it's fine. We're to each his own.
Yeah, I'll bring up some of the teams that I feel like are like bubble teams, essentially.
Yep.
So in first, we had South Korea. In second, we had Canada. Third, USA. Fourth, Finland. Sweden in fifth. And the United Kingdom in sixth. And, there are definitely a couple of teams out there that have a lot of talent on them that could definitely push through deep into, the brackets or just out of the group stage. That do pack a bit of punch. So, Russia is definitely one of the standout teams. France, who is sporting a lot of the former Rogue team. Outside of the tank line, it's basically old Rogue, which I'm happy to see just because I was a pretty...
Yeah, they got Soon, AKM, Unko, Wins,
Nico.
Nico.
Right.
Yeah.
That's all of them because they didn't take the tanks. China is definitely going to be in there, as are Australia and Spain. And, three of those all happen to be in the same group stage, so...
Oh, I know!
Deflating. But, just kind of, looking at, the differences between all the hosts, I think Edinar was the only one who actually picked France, so, they didn't quite make it, out into the top six because of that, because all the other hosts had the UK in that sixth spot. But
I actually did have the UK, but they were my sixth or seventh team, but I had to pick Australia because I don't know, they just got a deliciously yellow jersey and I can't go past it, can you?
Absolutely. So definitely we'll be tuning in. Are you guys going to be covering the World Cup on Junkertown when that's going on?
We will be covering the World Cup primarily from the Australian perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So when we do discuss the World Cup, we are going to be kind of really bullet pointing the rest of it. But we will, because we are Australian Overwatch podcast, we will primarily be discussing our boys in Australia. So we will definitely be talking about it. We actually went to the Sydney World Cup last year. So huge advice to anybody that has the opportunity to go to these group stages. Absolutely go, because it's so much fun. The environment's amazing, and it's an unforgettable weekend. So definitely check it out. But yeah, we'll be going super ham on all this, because the World Cup's such an exciting time, and to have your own country, like obviously for us, Australia. We're so excited, and every time there's been some sort of news related, we've been so quick to really milk it. We've gone full stylosa and just, given a little bit, talking about it for as much as we can. We are so excited when it comes to Australia. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I haven't seen you guys releasing any 10-minute videos or anything, so there's that.
Not yet, because I don't want to get started in that, because our listeners definitely know how I feel about him, right. And I don't need to plague another podcast with my personal vendetta.
Sounds good, man. All right, well, we're gonna go ahead and we'll wrap things up tonight. So if you guys want to help out the show, the best way to do that is to hop over on iTunes, give us a positive review, let us know what you'd like to see on the show, and just any sort of feedback is always welcomed. We do have Overwatch Recall. That is our Overwatch content directory, basically. It has a bunch of podcasts over there that can be found on our main website. And you can find episodic listens posted every Sunday at owlnshow.com/weekly recall. And, of course, we're on Twitter at owrecall. And, I'm waiting to hear back from Melarina from the Cavalry. They'll be the first podcast we are interviewing for that. So I don't have a time frame on when that first episode is dropping, but it'll be soon, but probably not Blizzard soon. I would imagine it would be quicker than that.
No TM.
Right. No TMs involved in regards to that. But if you want to reach us, you can do so. You can write us an email at contact@owlnshow.com. We're also on Twitch at least 3 nights a week for our live shows at twitch.tv/owlnshow. We are a Twitch affiliate, so you can support the show further by subscribing to our Twitch channel, whether it's, a paid sub, Twitch Prime. Either way, any support is always good. You can unlock our network emoticon. So thanks again to everyone who's been tuning in for our live shows. We do all of our podcasts live. That would be Overwatch League Network on Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific Time. Obviously, that covers the Overwatch League. We have Heroes Never Die on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific Time, which is our variety Overwatch show where we cover virtually everything Overwatch related, sometimes venturing into the darker, not safe for work side at times. And then, of course,
How dare you?
Yes, how dare us do stuff like that. And then, of course, we always have the podcast you're listening to currently, the Batcap, which focuses on the Path to Pro, the World Cup, contenders, all that good stuff. That is usually Thursdays at 7 p.m. Pacific Time. Today excluded because, time zones. That's just how it works.
Australia.
Yes, because Australia. Yeah. So yeah, having 2 different time zones, and I was completely unaware. Whatever, that's besides the point. And then we do tend to have host streams on Fridays and Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time. We have our YouTube channel. We're getting close to that custom URL. We really need it, because I don't want to link you guys to a 30, character URL. So just search Overwatch League Network. You can find all of our videos there. And we do have some Hammond videos that are currently being worked on by Spider. I don't have a time frame on that, but it should be dropping soon. And of course, you can find all of our Twitch files and stuff on there as well. But Tidget, where can people find you over on the social media, including, Junkertown FM, because you gotta plug your classic podcast.
If you want to find me personally, you can find me on Twitter. I am at the Tidget. There are other Tidgets, but I am definitely the Tidget. If you want to find mine and my co-host work, Belvedere and Tagsy, you can find us also on Twitter at Junkertown FM. You can obviously find the podcast for all good podcasting apps, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud. We're not on Google Play because we're in Australia and there's some restriction issues, which it doesn't cooperate with us, but you can find us on a shitload of other devices. So definitely give us a listen if you especially if you like that not safe for work kind of content, because that's what we strive for at Junkertown FM.
Absolutely, it is a fucking riot to put it in blunt terms. I mean, you guys have me rolling pretty much every week. In regards to the co-hosts, you can find Ren, who, as I've mentioned, he's doing work training, so he is MIA for a little while. You can find him on Twitter at Primal Ren. He's also
Where's
on
the
Twitch.
priorities? Where's the priorities? Ugh.
Hey, to be fair, I'm the one that told him to take it because he did
Nah,
come to me
bad
first.
guy.
Yeah, okay. But if you want to find myself, you can find me on Twitter at TotalDrunkCTR. And of course, if I am live on Twitch, it will be on our podcast channel, because being on another channel and then constantly having to swap back and forth would be absolutely stupid, and that's too much fun. I don't want to go through it. I will just stick to the one. But with that being said, teacher, thank you so much for coming on, man. I greatly appreciate it. It's finally good to get some content out, and hope to get you back on at some point, or maybe we have a drinking sesh for Junkertown FM. Whatever works.
Man. Yeah,
I don't know.
It's been so much fun. I can't believe it's taken us this long to actually get around to it, but obviously, thank you so much for having me on. Thank you for letting me just talk shit when it comes to Australian contenders, because it's an exciting time to do it. But also, more importantly, thank you so much for all the work that you do. We really appreciate everything, even when you're just contributing to the Junkertown Discord, especially all your stuff with the Overwatch Recall. You're an amazing dude. The community is definitely indebted to you, and the scene would look a lot different if it wasn't for you guys doing everything that you do. So we definitely appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the kind words. And we'll definitely talk again on Overwatch Recall at some point when we can get all of the mates on for an interesting interview, to say the least.
Yeah, we'll have a good old time.
All right. Well, with that being said, guys, we're going to go ahead and cut out of here, as it is after midnight, and I need to edit this ASAP since I do open tomorrow. So with that being said, we will see you guys back on Monday for our flagship show as we cover the Overwatch League quarterfinal results. So we hope to see you guys then. Guys, have a good night.
See you later.
Thank you for listening to Overwatch League Network, The Backcap. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at OWLN Show. Engage with the community on Discord at discord.me/OWLN Show.
Cool. Can I
and join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday night over on Twitch at twitch.tv/OWLN Show.